Good afternoon, Pomfret. Good afternoon. Why, thank you. All right, today we are welcoming a special guest for our school meeting as part of the Lasell Visiting Alumni Program. This program brings alumni home to Pomfret to share their time, talent, knowledge, and real-world experiences with students and faculty. These alumni have the opportunity to immerse themselves in the school community, attend classes, participate in discussions, and interact with the students and faculty using a hands-on approach. Funding for the Lasell Visiting Alumni Program is made possible through the generosity of Chester Lasell, class of '54. Mr. Lasell maintained close ties with Pomfret School as the Alumni Association president and as a member of Pomfret's Board of Trustees from 1977 until 1981. His family shares 3 generations of Pomfret School tradition and provided the naming gift for the Chester H. Lasell Alumni House. This year, we are excited to be welcoming Dr. Virginia Adewole, a graduate of the class of 1994, as this year's Lasell Visiting Alumna. Virginia is Assistant Chief of Hospital Medicine at Kaiser Permanente, West Los Angeles, in Los Angeles, California. She specializes in hospital medicine, caring for admitted patients with heart attacks, strokes, advanced cancer, and other acute medical conditions. She also serves as a preceptor for medical students at Kaiser Permanente Medical School and for international visiting medical students. Virginia received her MD from UC Davis School of Medicine and completed her residency at Highland Hospital in Oakland, a major county hospital for underserved populations. Before becoming a physician, she taught English language and literature to at-risk high school students in Linwood, California, and then at Lasell High School, a college preparatory school in Pasadena, California. Virginia graduated from Pomfret in 1994 after serving as student body president and engaging in lacrosse, cross country, and theater. She went on to Yale University, where she majored in English language and literature with a minor in African American studies, while also pursuing pre-medical studies. She was president of Alpha Omega Alpha, the nation's only co-ed community service fraternity, and consequently was heavily involved in community service, including tutoring at-risk youth in English and the sciences. She currently lives in Los Angeles, surrounded by family. Last year, Virginia began her tenure on Pomfret's Board of Trustees, where she chairs the Student Life Committee and is a member of the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee. Please join me in welcoming our 2025 Lasell Visiting Alumna, Dr. Virginia Adewole.
Thank you so much for having me. Yesterday, realizing that I would be speaking to you, I was searching for inspiration. And so I went online, I watched your convocation, and I was so moved. I'm going to say her name wrong, so apologize, but Kalakidian? Yes. I loved your speech. You were so articulate. And the part that I really loved was when you talked about how education is a responsibility, that after you get such a great education as Pomfret gives you and wherever else you're going, you have a responsibility to give back to your community, because it's not, the degrees that you earn are not just meant to be put on walls, but to give back that learning, that knowledge. So I love that. Gabby? Where's Gabby? I think that's her name. I loved your speech because it showed a lot of courage. You talked about the behavior that didn't serve you and how there came a point in time when your teachers helped you to realize that that behavior didn't serve you, and you had great courage in doing things in a different way to help you excel. So I'm really proud of you and the courage that you've shown. And then Lucas, where are you, Lucas? I'm so touched that a young man at your state in life realizes that in order to maintain communities, that things like forgiveness and reconciliation are integral. And so just watching you, I was like, wow, that's so wise beyond your years. So thank you for sharing that with us. So I found my inspiration in you. I can't believe I'm standing here. It's been 31 years since I've been at Pomfret. I graduated in '94, and like I said, I'm just grateful to be here. I remember my time at Pomfret with wonder and gratitude, a deep sense of having been blessed. I was in the 9th grade at 32nd Street Magnet School near the inner city, and I applied through A Better Chance, an organization which places students in private schools. When I found out that I was going to Pomfret, I remember flipping through picture after picture after picture. I was elated, not even nervous or scared. I lived in South Central Los Angeles, a neighborhood with its share of violence and a physical environment that was decidedly uncared for. Pomfret for me created an intangible promise of safety and possibility, and I could not wait to explore. Plus, I loved school. I always have. At the start of any new school year, I would become giddy with excitement when we would go to Staples and buy colored pens and folders and papers. And I could not believe that now I was going to this beautiful place to learn. I remember a car picking me up from the airport and what seemed like the longest ride ever to Pomfret. There was row after row of lush vegetation for miles around. It was like being whisked away in the Chronicles of Narnia or something, because for me, the trees were magical. That's when I started to cry, overwhelmed by all the things that were foreign. This was no longer South Central Los Angeles, with the littered sidewalks and the dilapidated buildings. What have I done? Where am I? Where's my family? Am I going to be okay? All these thoughts ran through my head. And finally, will I be able to fulfill my mission as I heard my dad's voice in my head over and over again? I've sent you away to school for a purpose. I believe in you. Do not disappoint me. When I finally got here, I couldn't believe my good fortune. The campus was gorgeous and everybody cared. I loved my classes. I loved my teachers. I loved finally making friends. I found my niche. One of my good friends, Sauda Johnson, now Johnson McNeil, who's a very successful lawyer in Los Angeles, tricked me into thinking that I could run cross country. So we suffered the miles together. The only time I ran fast in cross country was when dogs were chasing me and I was afraid for my life. So I was not a very good athlete, but I had fun. And Sauda and Monique Miles and I did theater together. I'm flooded with memories of Mr. Sloat's delicious homemade donuts, which we earned after a successful theater production. I was enthralled by the grace and athleticism required for lacrosse, which I continued to play quite poorly, but still enjoyed myself. Being a member of Voice provided me with a sense of home, and things didn't feel so foreign. Peer counseling gave me an opportunity to be present to the suffering of my peers and offer them a listening ear or a shoulder to cry on. My desire to ease a person's suffering became a theme that I would revisit throughout my life. Finally, I was student body president my last year, and I had the opportunity to give back to a community that had given so much to me. I remember my English teacher, Theodore Goodrich, my college counselor, Haga Merjan, the Garys, and our headmaster back then, Mr. Bradford Hastings. All of these people and experiences are why I stand before you today, out of immense gratitude for the community that taught me well, supported me with such tenderness through the rough parts, and pushed me to my very best. After graduating in 1994, I went to Yale and studied English language and literature while remaining pre-med. For those of you who want to be a doctor, you don't have to major in science. If you love science and want to go that route, then do it, but you can major in anything that you want. Just push yourself to excel in it. I chose English because I've always loved books, and Mr. Goodrich nourished this love in me with his encouragement and faith. I chose pre-med, ironically, because the younger me, note I said younger me, okay, like things that are hard. Life has since disabused me of that notion. I remember in high school when people were taking things like Spanish or French, I was asking them, which language is harder? And someone said Latin, so I took Latin. That was a mistake. If you're gonna be a doctor in Los Angeles, you need to take Spanish. Like half your patients speak Spanish, so it would have been a great way to connect with them. So yes, and I was also pre-med, and yes, the pre-med classes at Yale were definitely challenging. And I doubled in African American studies to learn more about my people and my culture. For a person who loves school, Yale was more phenomenal than I ever imagined college could be. People were not just book smart, but also passionate about whatever they were learning. And I fondly remember the late night conversations about Nietzsche and Shakespeare and politics and coffee joints, pizza joints, burger joints. Being nerdy was so cool. A few months after graduating from Yale, I became undocumented, and my life took a traumatic turn. I didn't even understand how immigration affected my life until then. As my colleagues were getting fancy jobs or going to fancy graduate schools, I went home, unsure whether or not I'd be able to stay in the country that I'd lived in for 5 years, since I was 5 years old, All of a sudden, I was being told that I did not belong, and I felt swept up in identity crisis. I remember looking at my name and wondering who I really was. If this was not my home, and I did not belong here, where did I belong? It took 12 years to answer those questions, 12 years to finally get a green card and become a permanent resident, 12 painful years of feeling like the world was moving ahead without me. During that time, I worked under the table as a teacher, first in an inner city school for high-risk students. I know my students liked me because they would say things like, "Miss A, we would never steal from you." I was like, oh, okay, I think that's a good thing, yeah. Okay, and then at a college prep school for another 7 years. In the meantime, I took more pre-med classes at UCLA Extension because I was worried that my college classes would expire. So when I got my green card, I applied to 30 medical schools, and I got into 10. I cried, and I cried, and I cried. 12 years of waiting. I feel like I'd broken down a brick wall. I was so glad that I continued to take science classes, even though my job required only continuing education classes. Back then, you could never tell Virginia Adewole that she can't take classes, LOL. So why medicine? Initially, I chose medicine because I found it to be intellectually challenging. It required more of me than other subjects did. Like I said, when I was younger, I wanted to do the hard things. The practice of medicine fits my personal characteristics. At the very core of why medicine is a good fit for me, is the fact that I have an opportunity to hold people's hands at their most vulnerable and do my best to ease their suffering. For me, it is indeed a meaningful career. I chose UC Davis School of Medicine, and it was challenging. Medical school is like drinking water from a fire hydrant. I was wrought with self-doubt and fear of failure, balanced by a hope for success. I choked and aspirated often on the volume of information. But 12 years of wanting and hoping and determination served me well. I used all of my resources and graduated. What makes me happy is that my dad was able to see me graduate and understand its importance before he developed full-blown dementia. After UC Davis, I went to Highland Hospital, a major county hospital in Oakland, to train in internal medicine. The training was intense, and the relationships between the residents, consequently, was almost magical. It was like what I imagined being in boot camp or being at war would be like. We and my friends and I, we were colleagues fighting against our own exhaustion due to the hours required to learn the practice of medicine well and to treat our patients effectively. I made friends with some of the most caring and dedicated and diverse group of people I have ever met. Still friends with them. Again, it was truly magical. My dad was dying, so I went home after residency. We placed him on hospice, and he died a peaceful, beautiful death at home. I will never forget the image of his 4 children lifting him from his bed and carrying him to the funeral van after saying a prayer over his body. Because of him, I was able to continue through lots of life struggles with dedication and hope. Now in Los Angeles, I'm a hospitalist at Kaiser West LA. On a daily basis, like they said, I treat patients with strokes, heart attacks, heart failure, lung disease, and stage cancer. I have my dream job. When I first started at Kaiser, I had no intention of staying. I'd already signed a contract at another hospital near the neighborhood that I grew up in, and I felt a strong sense of commitment. And yet, as I worked at Kaiser, I realized that this diverse group of people needed me and wanted me also. It became abundantly clear that this is a wonderful place to work. We call ourselves Kaiser Best LA. Last year, I became Assistant Chief of Hospital Medicine. I love medicine. I chose something that was hard for me, and I did it. Hospital medicine can be emotionally and physically exhausting. Patients are very sick and dying. You cannot save them all. You can save some of them, but you can show all of them that you care. I'll give you two examples. One of a patient that I saved and another of a patient that I lost. About a year ago, a young man came to the hospital with chest pain. He was in his mid to early 40s and actually a nurse at Kaiser. He worked out and tried to eat well. He'd been having sharp chest pain in the middle of his chest, lasting only a few minutes and often relieved by Mylanta. This time the pain did not go away with Mylanta, so he came to the emergency room. We gave him aspirin, did an EKG, ordered troponins. A troponin is a substance in the blood that the heart lets go of when there's damage. So his troponin was mildly elevated. But that was odd because he didn't have any acute conditions. So why would a young man have a mildly elevated troponin? There's no reason for it. So after the aspirin, he was feeling much better and really wanted to go home. He begged me to leave, saying, "Oh, I'm a nurse, I know what to look for." And I believed him. And he said, "I'll come back if I have significant chest pain." I stood in the doorway and reflected upon his request. He had a few risk factors for heart disease, but then everybody in America has risk factors for heart disease. And I asked him again, "Did you say your father died of a heart attack at a young age?" And he said yes. Alarm bells went off in my head. I still could not explain that mildly elevated troponin. Finally, I said to him, "No, you can't go home. I'm going to keep you overnight and monitor your troponin and your EKGs." I went upstairs to see my last patient before going home. As I walked up the stairs, I heard over the loudspeaker, "Code blue." In medicine, code blue means that there's a patient who's going to die probably within 10 to 15 minutes if we don't act quickly. So I'm walking up the stairs thinking, I wonder who that is. I look at the sheet of paper of my admissions, and they're talking about my patient. I turned around quickly and I ran down the stairs. The patient had walked to the bathroom, walked back to his room, and collapsed. He had a massive heart attack. We did CPR, we ordered his troponins, which now were in the thousands, and gave him medications to restart his heart, and whisked him away to cath lab to get a stent in his heart. I found out later that he had a large clot in his LAD, the largest blood vessel in the heart. If I'd sent that man home, he would have died on his way in the car. That event taught me the importance of being suspicious of atypical presentations and managing patients conservatively. Phew. 3 months ago, another story, I was admitting patients. I picked up another relatively young patient. She was requiring high levels of oxygen, even though she just had the flu. So I was puzzled and searched quickly through her chart to see if there was any reason to have such a severe response to influenza. I was placing her medication orders when I was called to the bedside. She was not tolerating high concentrations of oxygen that she really needed, so I placed her on a breathing machine, but she wasn't tolerating that either. So I ordered the respiratory therapist to check her blood level for oxygen. It was dangerously low, so I placed her on life support. Her fiancé was at the bedside the whole night, providing the history and advocating for his beloved. Again, it just didn't make sense that she would be this sick. I basically threw the kitchen sink at her, everything that I could think of, trying to get her more stable. That night, I admitted 7 patients in 8 hours and still managed to spend 3 hours by her bedside, 3 hours past my shift. I signed her out to the next doctor, went home at 5 a.m., tossed and turned, awakened at 7 a.m., worried about her. Pulled out my laptop and I looked her up. She'd become a code blue. She died in a massive pool of blood despite all of our efforts, bleeding from her lungs due to influenza. That was a rough week. I went to the gym and my trainer asked me how I was doing and I broke down in tears. I went to the dentist a few days later and he asked me how work was going and I broke down in tears. Finally, by the end of the week, I Googled her. I found a GoFundMe page in her name requesting donations for her funeral. I anonymously wrote about how impressed I was watching her fiancé advocate for her with such passion and dedication, and then I made an anonymous donation for her funeral. That helped me find a little bit of closure. Some of your patients will live, and you will lose some of them, but you can show all of them that you care. So many people want to be doctors. That's good in a way because there is a national shortage of doctors, especially primary care. But be careful. Assess why you want to be a doctor. Get to know yourself. Ask yourself over and over again, this year, next year, through college, Why do I want to be a doctor? Write down all the answers and reflect upon them. There are a lot of unhappy doctors out there. It's an intense job, okay? Even at Kaiser LA, there are lots of unhappy doctors. If I reflect upon why I'm happy, and so many doctors are not, I think ironically some of it has to do with my journey. The more I fought for opportunity, the more I wanted it. And having another career honestly gave me something to compare it to. In my limited experience, I think people who have had another career have an opportunity to reflect upon whether the sacrifice is worth it. And it is a sacrifice. So don't be afraid to do something else for a while. Just don't do something else for 12 years. That's too long. Okay? And if you take post-baccalaureate classes, take it as one group, not just a few classes here and there overnight, because that'll better prepare you for the volume and the pace of medical school. So again, ask yourself over and over again why you're doing this. Why are you making this complex decision? Like I said, I knew it was for me because I wanted to do something hard and it was challenging for me. I'm actually better at the humanities, not the sciences. I did it because I know that I'm a nurturing person at heart and medicine gives me the opportunity to care for people. I did it because I knew it was a way out of poverty. I did it to make my parents proud. Many people say, do not do this, do not do it for this reason. And there is truth to this. Because if you do something just for someone else, you run the risk of sacrificing your own happiness. But for me personally, I saw my parents sacrifice and struggle so much in America, there was nothing I wanted to do more than to make them happy and proud. And so for me, medicine continues to be a career worth having because every day I get to be present within the trusted space of vulnerability and do my very best to ease suffering. Thank you. Questions? Yes.
Hello, my name is Fiona Ruston, and I'm a sophomore here. I wanted to ask, how did your experience at Pomfret help guide you on your path to becoming a doctor, and what would you give Pomfret students who wish to study medicine?
Pomfret was definitely a catalyst for my educational success because I think the two key elements of doing well in education is having a supportive environment in which you're not afraid to try new things and not afraid to fail, and know that there will be someone there to help you find your way. Okay, so you have that support, and then also you're challenged. So you have teachers that invest in you so much, and they see what your potential is, and they help to push you. And so in those two ways, having a very supportive environment and having teachers that challenged me were a catalyst for my educational success. When I got to college, I knew that I was prepared, and I felt prepared. As far as medicine, again, just having that context that allows you to achieve educational excellence, and then the fact that you guys are required to do sports. Like I said, I'm terrible at sports, but it taught me collegiality and teamwork, and especially in medicine, teamwork is so important.
Hello, my name is Anabi. I'm a junior here at Pomfret. This is my second year. The question I wanted to ask you was, you worked with students and patients from underprivileged backgrounds. What advice would you give Pomfret students about using their own opportunities to help others? Yeah, good question. All of them, really. When you get to college and beyond, find opportunities to give back to the community, because like Calikidian said, with your education comes a responsibility to make communities better. And so just find ways, either through tutoring or soup kitchens, to give back to people. It'll enrich your experience and give you a different kind of education. And you could be the catalyst that encourages somebody to pursue education in a way that they otherwise would not have. Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Feedy Moskowitz. I'm a sophomore here at Pomfret, and my question is, how has your experience working with underserved populations at Highland Hospital shaped your perspective on equity in healthcare?
It helps you realize there's very little equity in healthcare. A lot of the diseases that I've seen at Highland and communities with fewer resources, you see diseases that in more affluent areas, the acute condition wouldn't become a chronic disease. To give you an example, when I work in more underserved areas, people's diabetes are out of control. And so a normal A1C is below 6.7, and you'll see A1C is a measure of how much sugar you have in your body. It's a bad thing. You'll see A1Cs of 13 and 15 in people who are only 30 years old. And so you'll have someone who's 30, 33, have 2 major heart attacks, which is unheard of in more affluent areas. So it lets you know that there's really no equity, unfortunately, because they don't have access to primary care, and so they don't go to the doctor, and so things get worse and worse and worse until it's too late. So.
Hi, my name is Joshua Leslie, and I'm a third-year junior at Pomfret. You mentioned in your Pomfret interview on the website that you like interviewing new candidates for your team.
Yeah.
What kind of qualities do you look for as a doctor beyond medical experience?
Yeah. Once you get the interview, we figure you know how to be a doctor because you wouldn't be here. I definitely look for empathy. I look for people who can connect to our patients, who know the importance of the social determinants of health, how their social contacts has affected the evolution of their disease, and can show empathy towards that. So empathy is really important to me when I interview patients, and a recognition of social context. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Any other questions?
I'm an open book.
That wants to be brave and raise their hand? If not, we've got a few more. Okay. All right. We got a hand. Oh, man. Can you project?
I'm wondering, like, as a doctor, there might be a lot of difficulties on the path of, like, standing here.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you adjust your emotions after facing a grave, like, difficulty, for example, your patients?
Yeah, it is a difficult path. It's a challenging career. As far as adjusting my emotions depending upon what my patients are going through, I just find ways to give to them, to connect with them on a human level. You know, there are lots of conversations about giving the new diagnosis of cancer, taking some extra time to sit on the bed to hold someone's hand as they process things like that. And you're really busy, you have lots of patients to see. It's a fast-paced, high-volume thing. But for me, doing that actually makes me less exhausted because I feel like, at least in this moment, whatever few minutes I have with you, I've made an effort to connect with you and to show you that I care. Mm-hmm.
Do we have any more? One more?
If you said students preparing for medical school necessarily don't have to study science in their college, what do you recommend for the students to major in their college?
Anything that you're passionate about, really. Yeah, the key is to do something you're passionate about, like I loved literature, and to excel in it. Yeah. And then you just take the pre-med classes in addition. Yeah. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Okay, one last call. Okay, wait, hold on.
So looking at Pomfret right now,
Mm-hmm.
and like the Pomfret that you remember in your memories, what do you feel has changed? Like, do you like things better like they were when you were going to high school, or how they are now?
Well, I accept things as they are. I don't see much that has changed. I know there are lots of new buildings, but just my memory is of a place that is beautiful and welcoming, and that's still Pomfret. The rest are just details. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All set? Thank you.